welcome. My name is Will Wakeling. I'm the Dean of Libraries here, and I'm the lucky person who gets to welcome you and to introduce our distinguished speaker this evening. This is the latest in a number of Meet the Author events we've been organizing for the fall. We've got some really good ones still to come. Tomorrow we've got a panel discussion on some of the issues of immigration in America today, opening as part of the opening process for the Emma Lazarus exhibit that we have upstairs. We've got a talk coming up with Dr. Emily Fox-Cales, whose book Body Shots, I beg your pardon, examines the culture of eating disorders in Hollywood. Who wouldn't want to know about that? And we're also hosting a musical performance for Boston jazz legend Al Vega and his trio later this semester. So some really good stuff going on, and it all follows the theme of Meet the Author, which is to surface interesting contemporary issues and give us all a chance, staff, student, academic community as a whole, to discuss some of those issues. So I'm sure Steve is hoping for some discussion as well as exposition this evening. The program, by the way, for the Meet the Author series, comment cards about your impressions and so on, and indeed cards to become a library supporter and support the effort that goes into these events. They're all available at the sign-in desk outside, so please take advantage of that. And we're also, as you'll see, filming today's event, or this evening's event, so you'll be able to follow it up on the University Library's YouTube channel, on iTunes University, Facebook, Twitter. You can, all of these are avenues, channels open to you to find out more about what's going on. No stone is being left unturned.
Oh my God.
Okay, so and before we do anything else, I should also give a few thanks to the people who've been putting together this program all through the semester and who've been responsible for today's event. The people mainly concerned are Nina Shah, our Marketing and Communications Advancement Assistant, and Kelsey Strout, our Marketing and Events Co-op. So thank you to them, and thank you to the Programming and Communications Committee in general for all the work they've put into this. They've worked really hard. Thank you. Get to that. We'll get to that. Now then, so let me say one other thing, an important thing, and that's about the sponsorship, the co-sponsors who've helped us bring this evening to fruition. So in addition to the library's effort here, there have been 3 university departments or groups units involved: the Department of Languages, Literatures and Cultures, Northeastern's Jewish Studies Program, and Northeastern's Latino-Latina Student Cultural Center have all been co-sponsors in this, and our thanks go out to them. All right, so I want to say just a little bit, not a lot, because he'll have plenty to say in his own right, about Steve Sadow, who's a professor, as many of you will know, of Spanish and Latin American literature here at Northeastern. He's an author, he's an editor, or a translator of at least 15 books. I don't know what the latest count is. 15 was the last I saw. Okay. And more than 70 book chapters, articles, literary translations. He's made, in truth, an immense contribution over more than 30 years to supporting and promoting the Jewish art and culture of Latin America, both in print and online, and in bringing together, most interestingly, some of its fragmented parts within the continent. So he's here today to speak to us about a remarkable exhibit and catalogue that he's compiled, and I should say that Wild Horses will not draw me to attempt to pronounce in its original language the title. But Identity and Diversity, Artist's Book, and it is an amazing, powerful assemblage of poems and accompanying artwork that you'll hear more about. The exhibit was originally held at the Jewish Museum in Buenos Aires in the spring of this year. And here's the point that answers the observation being made in the audience. It's Steve's commitment to making this rich material openly accessible online that makes it such an appropriate, entirely appropriate part of National Open Access Week, which is what we're celebrating this week. And Hilary Corbett here has been the library's scholarly communication librarian who's been responsible for spearheading that effort. So it's great. Over the last couple of days and for the rest of the week, we have a number of events as part of our commitment to open access and Open Access Week. And there couldn't, in truth, be a better advertisement or endorsement for the spirit and benefits of open access than the work of our speaker tonight, Stephen Sadow. Thank you.
Good evening. I usually start a talk like this by giving a hefty history of the Jews of Latin America. And I'm not going to do that because you can get it through open source. I then go through a story of how I got involved in this subject. I'm not going to do that because you can get it through open source. Okay. The project itself I will talk about. And you have a piece of paper that tells you of some of the others. Okay. First, let me say that open source has been a gift to me, a marvelous way to get to people far away from here and get to people right here at the same time. This is the World Wide Web, and I work with people in at least a dozen countries. And I mean, I do work with them on like piles of emails all the time, so that this serves as a way that one can see the other's work, or somebody can see it together, or whatever. It's just been a way of disseminating information that I haven't been able to match. Also, the books I do have short pieces in them. They're patchworks, and that makes for good web reading. They're not, lengthy treatises, which are on the web, but they take more mental effort to follow. So this is done intentionally for that. I use a lot of poetry, and a lot of artwork. Haven't done much narrative yet, but I'm thinking about it. In fact, I'm thinking about doing a book with at least 5 languages in it, but we'll get to that later. Okay. This project, it's about a year since since we started it. It was not my idea. The idea came from Perla Baider, who's an Argentine artist. You'll see one of her works as we go. She mainly works in pen and ink. She has shown had a show in Romania recently. I mean, it was her idea. I didn't know what an artist book was. Okay, learning about it, I decided, sounds good to me. Okay, a woman I've known at least as long as Perla lives and works in Buenos Aires. A close friend of hers and a close friend of mine is Irene Hayevsky. Her training is in being a curator, and she was right now a curator at the Jewish Museum, but before that she was a curator at the Architecture Museum, the Holocaust Museum, the Museum of the Woman. I guess she can't keep a job. But anyway, she knows a lot about putting up art and dealing with artist-type people. Okay, we settled on the topic, and the topic was to be art inspired by poetry. And it was to be art and translation of poetry, which I very much consider an art form in itself. And it was going to be Jewish artists and poets from as many Latin American countries as we could fit in or were available to us. Argentina simply has more of them. It's the largest Jewish community, and it's hard to walk down a block in Argentina without tripping over an artist. I'm kidding. Okay, the majority were Argentine, but as you'll see, we have about, I think it's 7 other countries represented. The project got started. We immediately started to have fights. The first thing we had to decide, well, we knew who the poets were going to be, because with my colleague Jim Cates, I had been translating this poetry for 20 years. And a good deal of it had been published in literary magazines and some online. So I had the poets. We didn't have the artists, and that was the fight. I have, as you'll see on the list, have been part of the leadership of a huge website, which has over 1,100 artworks on it. So over the years, I've been in touch with many artists from many Latin American countries. So I certainly had my ideas of who should be in this mix. Perla and Irene had their ideas. And we had a brawl, okay? But we finally set on parameters, and there were a lot of them. We wanted older artists and younger artists. We wanted Argentine artists and artists from other countries. And very much we wanted artists who worked in a variety of techniques. So we went through lists, and there was actually one more factor to it. We had to find artists, given all those parameters, we had to find artists who were some way or other in tune with the poems. I mean, you can't really know that, but most artists who are established have websites. Most of them, one of us or the other, knew personally. And you try to find somebody who you think can work with the poem. I think we did pretty well, except for one that I don't, okay, then we had to go through this quickly because I want to get to the material. We told some of the poets are deceased. The ones who are alive, we told that we wanted to use a poem, okay? A poem from the collections that we'd already translated. I picked the poems. And then we contacted the originally 13 artists. This was going to be 13. 13, I'm told, is a lucky number in Judaism, but I never knew that before. We contact the artists from Mexico through Uruguay and the gang in Argentina, and nobody says no. I mean, this is, yeah, okay, so we got our team finally. We got a list that we agreed on. We wrote them all. They said sure. We bought paper for them. Perla was insistent on knowing what technique they used. For the Argentines, we gave them the paper. For the, it just got too cumbersome. So for the people in other countries, they bought their own paper. We paid them for it. The pictures came in one by one. We liked what we saw. If we didn't, it was tough. Because when you're commissioned to work, you get it. And then the final process, this all took place in a matter of months. The pictures came in. We brought in a graphic designer who also happens to be one of our artists. We brought in a photographer to make this kind of thing who happens to be living with the graphic designer. In Argentina, it's always family, you know. And she laid out first the books. The actual books were done by a graphic, or designed by a graphic designer. That sounds funny. And then put together. The text, as you will see, we have Spanish first, we have the picture second, and we have the English third, except when the poems were too long. That threw off the rhythm. So in some cases, it's an extra page. Also, for each pair, we have biographical information. When we show the book tonight, and we're going to see all of it, though some of it quite rapidly, and this is being downloaded as we speak. So this really is open source. I have it on disk too, of course, but just in case. but that's coming from the web. Okay. I think we ought to start looking at it. Can somebody push the buttons? Yeah. With the biographies, zip through them, and I'll tell you which poems. I'll just say, okay, all right. Okay, this is one. We're starting here, but there is a fair amount of introductory material, essays that I wrote, that the others wrote, stuff. Okay, this is where the content of the book really starts. Jenny Acechayo is a director of a series of bookstores in Mexico City. They're called El Péndulo. This one, the one she works in, happens to be in the Polanco region, which is mainly a Jewish part of town. It's a spectacular place. It's like, takes your breath away as a bookstore. In 2008, we did a couple of panel discussions there where about 80 or 90 people showed. Okay, so I had a relationship with Jenny. Jenny is probably the most religious of the people we dealt with, and her poems tend to be prayer-like. Okay. The mouth opens, divides God and the Word. From the abyss, I breathe text. The seam discerns the infinite. You will steal light that escapes from the mirror. You will find your face behind the last shadow. You will discover who you are, who you will be, who you were. In a shattered instant, they will come up against all times. And you, immense as a butterfly, will climb the days and return to the eye of your birth. She loves the light wind, its ink. The woman tends her fire. She raises questions at the root, obeys the bow. Can you go back to the one? Okay. This is by Mariana Felsman. Mariana is the graphic designer, but she's also an artist. And this is her conception of that poem. And what you'll be seeing as we go through them is exactly that. What the artist saw in the poem that they felt was worth expressing. We specifically told them not to do illustrations. The idea was have almost a combined spirit. Okay, we're going to, and now to the picture. Okay. Michal Kirschbaum is a Brazilian. Lives in Florianopolis, was born in Porto Alegre. Both of those cities are in the southern part of Brazil, down near Uruguay. She is a younger artist, but a damn good one. Specializes in installations, and wrote me that she just received a fellowship to study at the University of Amsterdam for the next 2 years. Okay, I'll read the part of the poem in a minute, but in fact, hold this in your mind. We won't go back and forth so much. Hold this in your mind, and let's look at the English. Okay, the brutal attack on the AMIA, the Argentine Jewish Mutual Association, that cut short the lives of 86 people occurred on July 18th. Okay, what we did also, another control, was that we wanted a different Jewish topic in each painting. So we divided that way too. This was a disaster of enormous repercussions. I was in the building 2 weeks before this. It really did change my life. One person, I knew one of the people who died. Okay. Daniel Chiron, the poet, is world class. His poems either in Spanish or translation, have been published widely. He's did a number of books, and unfortunately he died young of cancer. I knew him rather well, one of the finest people I ever met. Okay, the poem, and I'm not going to read this all. Why is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights we eat in abundance and we sing and laugh over the wine. But tonight we have only unleavened bread and vinegar because we are sad thinking about exile. Why on this night do we not intone canticles? Every night we praise God as beautifully as we can, but on this night silence reigns because we have lost our appetite and the desert is vast. Why on this night do shadows take possession of our houses? On all other nights, lights illuminate the table, but tonight there's only one candelabra that we remember darkness. Okay, that should be enough. It's, of course, a refrain or response to the 4 questions that pass over. And it's a long poem. He goes through long answers to the 4 questions. No, we're going to show the picture. Yeah. Okay. So this poem is by Sonia Chakram, the poem that you whizzed by there. Sonia is Venezuelan. In spite of the massive anti-Semitism of, the hell is his name? Hugo Chavez. It's dangerous, often dangerous for Jews to be on the street. Half the Jewish community of Venezuela has left Venezuela, but the others still see hope in their country, feel Venezuelan, in some cases have great investments in Venezuela, whatever. And Sonia has chosen to stay and to write and to fight any way she can. Okay. The poem, though, is a poem about a very strong woman in the late Middle Ages. There's a legend of a Spanish king. Go to the English so we can see it. Named, the Spanish king was Alfonso something or other. Alfonso XIII, the 13th of Seville. This is a Spanish romance. Raquel, the Jewish woman, ran off with the king. The picture, as you saw, was by Susanna Greenberg. Go back to it. Susanna Greenberg is, again, a good friend. She's Argentine. And she has done a lot of Holocaust-oriented art. And her theme for years would be figures without heads. Figures in semi-abstract human figures, but always without heads. And, you know, you got to figure out what you think it means to you. Okay, this one is a little more direct. Strong women happen to be an important theme in this kind of Jewish art, and also in Argentine art in general. That's what you got. Okay, let's go. Okay, The Disappeared. I'll go the other way. The picture is by Hugo Goleo. Interesting because he wasn't a painter until he was 50. He had started as a child, and then it just didn't happen. He went to high school and then went to medical school. He's a psychiatrist, practicing Freudian, as everyone in Argentina is. You can't enter the country unless you believe in Freud. And at about 50, he said, let me try my hand at drawing again. And his work started to win prizes. He recently had an exhibition in Paris. I think it should be obvious from the picture what it's about, but 30,000 well-founded reasons caused the grandmothers, mothers of the Plaza de Mayo to assemble in their wrath and take on the thick-headed federal horse herd. Okay, the poet is Teodoro Ducach. I never met him, but we had email exchanges. He's one of two in this series, in the poets, who made Aliyah, settled in Israel. His story is particularly interesting because he went in 1947, and he fought as a foreigner in the War of Independence. Then he stayed, but he came back. He made his living by writing for Excelsior in Mexico City. So there's a lot of that kind of crossing. Okay, the painting as you saw by Golem, the Mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, etc. Okay. Let's look at the poem and then go back. Okay. Ricardo Firestein I have known for 30 years. He is probably my closest friend in Buenos Aires. In the early years, I've been to Buenos Aires easily 25 times. And in the early years, I would just stay at his house. Now I rent an apartment. You know, you're moving on up. But Ricardo and I have done numerous projects together. Jewish cultural fairs that went on from Saturday night through Tuesday night, straight through 9 to midnight or something. Argentines go to sleep late. 100 different, from anything from academic presentations to a female trombone player doing Gershwin. Okay, we have assembled all of that. We did assemble all that material in 4 separate books that come to about 1,500 pages in total. Okay. The main issue in the literature written by Ricardo, which is fairly substantial, is the place of the Jew in Argentina. What kind of identity, in the current generation, no longer an issue. But in his generation, to be both Jewish and Argentine was a strain. You really didn't know. Okay. Born in Buenos Aires in 1942, where my first love came early, the slide of the rain, a fight where I decked the other guy, the Peronist anthem from loudspeakers on the street, triple features for $1, asthmatic kites, and the first television on the block, uniforms and horses, excitement and multitudes, the motley color of my football club. I carved a heart on my school desk, best in class. I attended Evita's funeral. I could focus on the cold eyeglasses of the night to pass through the trees, prostitutes, noises, fiestas, mirrors of light when my children's eyes bloom. I looked at the sun, a concertina in the dusk, to scale mountains, to enfold dawns. I bear this land in my blood. Born in Buenos Aires in 1942, the very year 1,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, several million were converted to flaming columns of smoke and blackened the German and Polish skies. How many never to be brothers and friends of mine were already there? And more, I learned that the red flames and praise eradicate the hair of the night. An ancient chronicle overwhelmed my senses, drew a blue canticle on my ancestral cup. In my veins, I came across the word Jew. Made it dance, dream of feathers, seed the wind, roll down the highways like a runaway wheel, to rejoin in salt and in trembling, and I follow it by fits and starts. I bear this echo in my blood. Born in Buenos Aires in 1942, on the 8th day I was circumcised. Okay, could we go back to the picture? The artist, Adrian Levy is one of the younger, not so young. He also is an Argentine and has done many works that are Holocaust-based. Not this time. This is the first prayer of the morning. Okay, he got that out of the poem I just read. Okay, it's a little bit ironic in that Ricardo is an absolute atheist. But that's what, and Ricardo liked it. Okay. Okay, let's go. All right. Leonor Koifman, a woman in her 70s, in Buenos Aires, a sort of under-the-radar artist. Does a lot of good things, but is not that well known. And this fits kind of into our theme. In 2 or 3 years ago, when she was 72, she discovered digital art. She got someone to teach her how to do it, and she said, "That's all I need to know. Don't teach me anything else." Okay, this is the work she did to respond to the poem we're going to look at in a second. This is one of her snapshot type digital art. She also has learned to do moving pictures. And let's see now what it's about. We can go both directions. I'll just leave, if you can, okay. If you leave one letter or write one too many, you destroy the universe. Rabbi Meyer. The most profound and hidden of the inmost nooks of the Jewish soul, Gershom Scholem. Everything emanates from one point and to that point returns. Since the other part is only a sight among signs where other planes overflow unexpected angles, disturbing the living, the maps and the keys, without rest, after continuing floods, the names and the letters with their numbers are preserved. The severity of the cosmos that counterfeits endings and the lost aroma in the bitter herbs. Okay, Juana Garcia Abbas is a very special person. I've never met her. She lives in Havana. Her health is not great. Her son is a well-known artist outside of Cuba, named Jose Luis Fariñas. Her knowledge is overwhelming. She put out a book of poems called Circumlocutions. And it's a word I never saw before. Okay. In any case, it's one of the most difficult Hermetic poems, set of poetry that I have encountered. It won the Nicolas Guillen, who's a noted, it's no longer alive, but was a very important Cuban poet. So Nicolas Guillen Prize for her book. I would love to write about it, but it's too hard. In any case, Garcia Abbas, living isolated in Cuba, is an intense reader of philosophy, an intense reader of Judaic texts, which are available to her one way or another, and a good mathematician, one of these people who just knows. And that is filtered into her poetry. Not all her poetry of any of these people, actually, is Jewish focused, but a good chunk of it is. Okay. Okay, Tomas Waingro is the youngest. He's 23, maybe 24 by now. And I actually don't know him personally. He's better known for his musical skills. He leads a band, which in Argentina is pretty common. If you don't meet an artist, you meet somebody who leads a band. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole of the next poem, but in this one you kind of have to have the poem first. Jesus, you have forgotten my America. Come one day and be born in those crazy lands. That's a citation from the Cuban poet Carlos Pellicer. For God's sakes, don't even dream, Jesus, of being born in my other promised land. The Jew implores you, groveling, as well as the Peruvian who flays me. Flays me for being the son of a camel. No, a burro. Didn't mean to read it all, but I can't stop. A burro offered up on your wooden cross, used by a Jew to strip skin from my carcass for being the imprecise son of a camel and a burro. Jesus, paying no attention to that poet who calls you from the depth of your Christian being to be born again in these crazy parts. I swear by the God of Abraham, that you may not sacrifice for my Peruvian what you have given abundantly for my Jew. You have to read that one a few times. Okay. Isaac lives in New York now, and he's a long-term friend of mine. He was born in Chepén, which is way in the north of Peru. His father was Jewish. His mother was indigenous. His father was insistent on keeping the Jewish tradition alive in his son, sent him to Lima, went first to a Jewish day school, and then eventually on to a regular high school, which was very tough for a Jewish kid. But he got through it. And on from there. He's lived in several countries, eventually ended up in the Bronx, teaches at Hostos Community College. What's, to me, fascinating about this poem is the syncretism. And that's what religion is like in Peru for many, many people, not just Jews. It has a piece of Christianity in it. For him, it has a majority of Jewish in it. It has a little bit of Inca religion in it. It's a combination. And here he's talking more about the strain between the Christian and the Jewish in his own self and in the country. Okay, let's move. Okay. Miriam de Nasatsky helped me and is still helping me and create the art website. She's a woman in mid-70s, though I've known her for a long time. And she went to see the museum at Auschwitz. You can't see Auschwitz, and most of it is in ruins, but you can see the museum. And she was so deeply moved that she's just published a book of poetry based on the experience of being in the Museum of Auschwitz. Okay. Liana Strasbourg is mid-30s, say. She just won a major award in Argentina, though she's not really become internationally known yet. The poem deals with children in Auschwitz, and I guess so does the picture. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll read one stanza. Beyond death, no one will give them back life snatched away prematurely. However, their sleepless gaze without tears nests in the clouds. Okay, let's go. Susanna Greenberg, another close friend. The wonderful part of doing this kind of work is you make friends. And you make them in many places. And some of them you never actually see. But again, email is a wonderful thing. I mean, for this sort of work, no matter, it's not such a wonderful thing when a student writes you and says, should you read page 1 or page 2? But for this kind of thing, it's marvelous. And Susanna and I keep in touch. Susanna has multiple sclerosis, so she's not out very much, but she compensates by being in a great mood, keeping her spirits up, and writing about a vast, sort of vast vision of sometimes Jewish topics, sometimes love, sometimes. Okay. Perla Beider, as I mentioned before, is one of my colleagues on this project. The name, she insists on pronouncing the name that way, though in Spanish it would be Bachter, because she sees very much importance the Polish side of her background. She's certainly Jewish, but she has made it a point to reconnect to Poland. And she does a lot of activities with the Polish consulate. She's been there in Poland several times. Okay, as you can see, her style is different. This is all done with a pen, bit by bit by bit. Let's look at the poem. Susanna's poem, we had a hell of a time translating the line from Borges, the great Argentine poet. The woman hurts me in my entire body. Okay. A woman, Adam's dream, left a wound in him. She was the cut. He will court her. A woman, part of him. The man will seek her always. They will never know where they are. She will desire him and lose herself, and with him he will lose himself in her. A woman has slept the clear night. The body awakens from other body. The other sleepless, the sleepless ardor breathes her desire. More and more and more. It's a long poem, and you get kind of excited while you're reading it. Susanna recently is writing a great deal of poetry based on biblical people. This is, of course, Eve, but she's just finishing a book about Moses. This one doesn't make any sense unless we see the poem. The Golem, of course, was a man made of clay. There are long and complex traditions about it. It supposedly took place in Prague in something like 1470s. Okay, a man infused life. A rabbi infused life into a man of clay. It's like a pre-Frankenstein. Let me switch back. The poet is Angelina Muñiz Uberman. And if I were to suggest you read anybody of these people, it would be Angelina. She's in her mid-70s. She's probably she's one of the three most important writers in Mexico. She's published like 40 volumes. I gave a paper on her work last summer. Just such a deep and worldly person. When she invited me over when I was in Mexico, and with my wife, we went and we had dinner with her and her husband. And I said to her, Angelina, how do you know all this stuff? And she just pointed the library they had in their second bedroom. Her life story is a tale in itself. But it's not, I don't need to tell it now. If anybody's curious, I'll tell you. She knows Kabbalah from the original. Kabbalah being Jewish mysticism in its varied forms. She was just retired as a professor of comparative literature at UNAM, the University Autónoma of Mexico. Her books are sexy as hell. And she, and they usually have Jewish themes to them. Rabbi Eliezer opened the palm of his hand and let go the miraculous virgin earth. He took the pure water from a mountain stream. He recited the 221 alphabetic combinations that shaped the golem. He willed the man of mud to walk, and the man of mud walked. He willed the man of mud to obey, and the man of mud obeyed. He willed him to work, to clean, to put things in order, and he worked, he cleaned, and put things in order. He wanted him to converse with him and willed him to have a soul. Silence. The golem crumbled into dust and returned to dust. Rabbi Eliezer remembered that all men are mortal. Okay, can we go back to the picture? This was Raquel Schwartz's take on it. Raquel Schwartz is to my knowledge, the only Bolivian Jewish artist, a plastic artist. If she knows about others, she hadn't told me. Okay, she lives in a city called Santa Cruz de la Sierra, which is a more Europeanized city than much of Bolivia. It's a it's a 8,000 feet rather than 12. And she runs an art gallery there. And she also has connections in Miami, and she spent some time in Miami. But basically, she gives art classes and runs this art gallery. This was her reaction to the Golem poem. Oh, just another little anecdote about it. When I did an anthology in 2006, I was trying to cover all the nations with writers, and some paintings in that one, but not too many. And so I wrote Raquel, and I said, Raquel, do you know any Jewish Bolivian writer? And she said, only one, my sister Monica. So I got a piece from Monica. So this is Monica and Rachel, or Raquel Schwartz, pronounced Schwartz, coming from Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia, okay, and painting like that. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're getting toward the end. This is a mother and daughter team. The poem is by Rosita Kalina, died in 2005. I never met her, but I did have some kind of communication with her. She's an exuberant poet. She's a tropical poet. She's a very positive poet. This is not that usual in Jewish poetry. Right. Okay. Without getting into the Jewish community of Costa Rica, they've had it pretty good there. I'm taking this on the road. I'm going to Costa Rica in March. Great place. Okay, this is by the daughter, Ileana Piscalina. The mother, well, we'll see the poem in a sec, but it's about a strong woman who's very proud of her Jewish heritage, but is also a tropical person, a Central American. Okay, this, as you'll see later if you want to look at the others, we had troubles with her. Not personally, she's a lovely person. But one, she did the only vertical painting when all the others we asked to do horizontal. So she broke that rule. And then she, okay, fine, she bought her own paper. She sent it in a roll from Costa Rica to Argentina. Being a good Costa Rican, she put in big letters, Obra de Arte, okay? It got to Argentina, and being good Argentines, the customs people jumped on it, okay? And they held it, and they gave him, sent a message to Irene, whose name was on it, and it took her a whole day to rescue it, okay? But it's here. To the poem, I forgot to talk about Ileana. I'll say a word. She is engrossed with her mother's work. So I haven't seen this too often, but they were very close in life, and she has been doing recently a series of paintings inspired by her mother or her mother's work. And let me just read the first few lines. I'm of the tribe of Judah, that of my grandparents and great-grandparents, that of Solomon, of Jesus, and Einstein, not to mention Freud, whose valuable Kabbalistic secret leaped to the therapist's chair. Okay. Remember, as I started with, if you don't know Freud, you're nothing. Okay, let's move on. Almost there. Jospeh Veen is the other Israeli, or Argentine Israeli. Very proud. I've met him in Haifa, and he runs 2 different blogs, and I've written for those blogs from Haifa. He went in about 1974, sometime during the proceso, the ugly period of Argentina's history. He made Aliyah, got a job with the Zim lines, and he's retired now, but he's still there. And he wrote, the poem is very sensitive to the differences from being an Argentine and being an Israeli, and also to being an Argentine-Israeli. Okay. Lily Talmor, probably the most important of all of our paintings, of all of our artists. She works in photographic base. She works both in Venezuela. She has a home in Caracas, and she spends part of the year in Tel Aviv, where she also has a place. Her works sell for quite a bit of money. And, okay, this is the connection she got of a person who is nostalgic for home. Okay, next. And the poem, I speak of remote lands of green pastures and tall crops. I speak of the faraway pampas of wild horses. And when I speak of rivers and harbors, they aren't the same rivers or the same harbors you imagine. Okay, let's go. Okay. I don't need to read this poem, but I need to tell you about it. The poem is the oldest poem we have in the group, the earliest. Cesar Tiempo was not the father of Jewish literature. He was like the maker of it. Alberto Gurchunov was the first one to write books. But Cesar Tiempo was born in the Ukraine under the name Israel Zeitlin, Zeit meaning time, okay? Took an Argentine name, was basically a playwright, was a solid Peronist in the first Peron period, was a labor organizer, was a follower and supporter of the Jewish community, wrote many lovely poems about the Jewish community, which at that time was about 300,000 or more. But in this particular poem is, maybe we move to the English. When Bialik, the great Hebrew poet, died, it was sent around, the news went around the world, particularly to Yiddish newspapers and other Jewish sources. And from what I gather from the poem, nobody in Argentina cared, okay, according to Cesar Tiempo, of course. And that's what he's being the prophet for the community and saying, you bums, the greatest poet of the greatest of our poets of the 20th century died, and your, what does he say? Community newspapers managed to insert a note on the society page next to the account of a party thrown by the Barbanchiks for the circumcision of an offshoot. I have a violent heart and a raspy voice. I will walk the crossroads in Jewish neighborhoods carrying rancor and pain in my back. Brothers of Buenos Aires, our greatest poet has died. As in the Psalms, God guided his strength and perfected his his way, excuse me. Hard to see in this angle. I could read it here. I haven't been doing that. Let's see, I like the open source part of it. You know, you just, okay. This is a long poem. It's been translated by others. We were fortunate enough to publish in New York in a publication called The Jewish Frontier, which at that time was edited by a man named Nahum Goldman. And when I was trying to get a I called the office, and a lady with a heavy European accent said, "You got to talk to the editor." So Goldman got on the okay. I learned from his obituary several years later that he had been a close friend of Golda Meir in Minnesota. Okay, this is kind of spin-off stuff that happens in these projects. Okay, let's go back to the picture for a sec. Raquel Schwartz, one of the great artists of Uruguay of the moment, had a lot of classical training from several Jose Gorovich, Torres Garcia, and Zona Beitler were her three teachers, and they were world-renowned, but the most important people in Uruguay. She also knew personally the family of the writer Jose Carlos Onetti. And much more important, she had actually met Cesar Tiempo. When she was a little girl, they were in Argentina. She was in Norway, but they were in Argentina, and her parents introduced her. Okay, so when we asked her to do this, she got very excited. Okay, she also is a cartoonist, and she does cartoons that for world peace, for human rights, for good stuff. But she does them without words, and they circulate around the world. She's gotten prizes. In 1 year, she got a prize in Denmark and a prize in South Korea. And she hushes up the fact that she also got a prize in Tehran. Okay, we're almost there. Okay. I said when we started that we had 13. During the process of the project, and we're all, Irene, Perla, and I are going a bit crazy. Things are coming at all directions. By the end of this, we had roughly 40 people involved in the project. Mirta Kupfermink, an artist who self-promotes a lot, but by that way isn't quite well known outside of Argentina, gives many talks in the United States. In any case, Eliyahu Toker died. Eliyahu Toker was known for his work in reviving Yiddish in Argentina, but he was also known as a very good, if not super-duper poet, best friend of hers. So she wrote me and said, I've got to do Eliyahu Toker. And so with the budget we were working on, as you can imagine, okay. And we put in a poem by Eliyahu Toker, and Mirta did this. And you'll see in a moment why she did this, or how she did this. Or maybe you won't. Homage to my Jewish condition. My son is in no way me as much as I am my father, and precisely the other side of the coin, the same dune, different, modeled by storms. Okay. So I don't let history down. I meticulously set the usual trap, and under protest, I play my hand inside, sick and tired of my Jewish condition. Reflected by myths that interweave tragedy, my people is an inverted polyhedron. The convex panes of glass that move away from the doors, and the tick of repeating, thank you, and repeating the misfortune, the fate. I'll read it for the last part of the last poem. I'll read it from the computer. My son is in no way me as much as I am my father, and precisely the other side of the coin. A same dune, different, mystical, modeled by storms. Okay, with this, we opened with origin, and we ended with a poet passed away. This is the only picture, I want to go back to it for a second, that I believe is more toward the poet than the poem. But it is, well, I'm trying not to give you my explanations. I'm trying to see yours. She was, Mirta at the time was doing a series, a cycle of paintings on the idea of identity, if that helps. Okay, that gets us through this project, and we're a few minutes after 7. You can, if you go to Iris and you go to Sadow, okay, you will find a lot of stuff. Iris is terrific in picking up stuff that you forgot about completely. I mean, and it is terrific for the reasons that I was talking about before. Let me just end showing off. Okay, what we just saw was Identidad y Diversidad. let's go to the other one. Una voz entre las multitudes, poetas judíos de América Latina. This is the combined work of Jim and myself. Not every single poem we did, but most. It comes to 204 pages, and you can enjoy part or all of it. Okay. The third. Yeah. All right. Absolutely.
You know, that's to be able to do that on screen or in this kind of format is so much different than seeing something once in an exhibit and then trying to remember it and seeing it just in a tiny printed catalog, which, I think this really adds something to the experience.
I fully agree. Okay, I certainly want to thank Hillary. She is beyond a magician. That's a word in Spanish, a mago. She is beyond a shaman, even. She's a seer. Yeah. She's I give her the stuff, and we go back and forth with it, and it comes out, wow. And we're going to do another one. I haven't figured out exactly what. I want to do a Jewish book and